Hey guys, happy Monday, happy holidays. So I hope you're having a good week. Maybe some of you are taking this week off, maybe some of you are still working. So I took a nice long weekend. My birthday was last week, so I feel like I'm kind of getting back into work. So here we are on Monday, chapter 4 for Eat Smarter. And let me just say, first of all, there's no way I could even summarize this chapter specifically because it is so meaty. It's probably, I think, the longest chapter in the book. So I'm going to give you some bites of what you need to know. It's a fantastic topic. So if you're joining me, let me know that you're here. Drop your comments, drop your questions, drop maybe what you learned from the chapter if you read it. If you haven't read it, then maybe, any questions about macros or just about something that I may say and bring up as a part of the book. Jim probably isn't going to join. He might. I'm going to look out for him. He is actually, he caught COVID, so he's been fighting that. So he's definitely under the weather, so he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it tonight, depending on how he feels. So there we go. So here I am. Let's go ahead and, excuse me, talk about Chapter 4 macros. But first, I want to remind you that if you are a Fireteam Whiskey app member, you get to do our Holiday Bingo Challenge this week. So make sure to go to the top of this Facebook page, this Facebook group, and grab that holiday card. You have 7 days to mark off. I think it's 5 to get bingo. So you have 2 extra days. If you miss today, that's fine. You have 7 days to get 5 boxes to get your bingo. And then you have to post your proof of, getting those boxes done. So each day as you do it. And then at the end, if you get bingo, then you qualify to win one of several prizes. So let's have fun with this. There's a lot of really fun, even non-health related challenges on the on the card, like just wearing a Santa hat or an ugly Christmas sweater. So check that out. It's a fun thing that we do every year just to keep you motivated because, definitely holiday week is a little challenging for a lot of people with traveling and craziness and family visiting and trying to stay healthy and keep your hands off all those holiday treats all around us. So I did a nice almost 12-mile bike ride this morning. So I started my week off strong. So hopefully you did too. So start your week off strong so you can end the week off strong and, stay strong with all the holiday treats and temptations around you and things pulling you away from what you need to do. So this is why we do the holiday challenge this week. Okay, so I'm assuming, I guess Jim is not going to join me, so that's okay. Wishing you well, Jim. Hopefully you can watch back and, join us next week if you're feeling better. Hopefully you will be. And so let's start with macros. I highly recommend, if you haven't read this chapter, read it. It's the longest chapter in the book. So I'm just going to highlight the sections in here, tell you what you need to know. Hopefully you'll go back and read the chapter and get a little bit more. Okay, so starts right off the bat with the most important macro, for sure, 100% the most important one, is protein. And unfortunately, I think the statistic is, based on my and sports specific recommendations, I think it's like 90% of people don't meet our thresholds for protein intake. You guys have to remember that the RDA, the recommended daily allowance for protein, for, vitamins and minerals. Okay, so you see these RDAs and you see that these diets out there recommend that you meet this specific RDA. Problem is, you have to remember that the RDA is just the bare minimum recommended daily minimum for good, okay-ish, I guess, based on our standards of health here in America, I would say okay-ish biological functioning. All right. So think about it. If the RDA says a specific number, then that means you probably should be going way over if you want to be a very healthy person. This is bare minimum, they say, to just maintain basic functioning and not have, a total breakdown of systems, right? So we don't want to do that. I mean, we don't want to do bare minimum. We want to go above and beyond and do and consume what we need to have optimal health, not just bare minimum health. Who wants bare minimum health? No. So we here at Fireteam Whiskey are teaching you how to get optimal health. So I'm going to talk to you about optimal health and optimal protein levels. So we all know what protein is, obviously. So, but I just wanted to talk to you about, there's study after study after study cited in here for pages and pages and pages he spends on protein alone because it is the most important macronutrient. But bottom line is what you need to know is adding more protein, specifically earlier in the day, if you front load it, literally decreases the signals in the brain that stimulate appetite and lead to overeating. It also is a building block for valuable muscle tissue. So if you're eating enough protein and building muscle tissue, then that means you are burning more calories simply by just having more muscle mass on your body, right? So the more muscle mass, the more fat you burn. Another aspect of protein is that you actually burn more calories digesting protein. You burn more calories digesting this specific macro compared to carbohydrates and fats. So you burn 20 to 30% of what you just ate in protein just to break it down in your system and to use it as energy. So that's great. You're actually getting more burning of calories if you're eating more protein. So that's fantastic too. It's, there's that kind of, negative calorie effect just by eating protein. It's almost like doing a little bit of a workout while you're eating. So in the course of a 5-year study, no macronutrient reduced the amount of belly fat for study participants more than protein had. Okay, can I get an amen? And can I get a who definitely wants to lose belly fat? We do, so that means you need to eat higher protein. We'll talk about those levels and what that means for you in a second. And then protein intake above the RDA, okay, increases cardiometabolic factors, and they're associated with lower BMI, lower levels of visceral fat, improved cholesterol profile compared to protein intakes at RDA level. So if you are meeting the bare minimum of what the government says that you should get, you actually don't get the health benefits if you go over that, right? So we want optimal health function, not minimal health function. So RDA, so just forget the RDA on this. I'm going to tell you how much you need to be focusing on eating protein. And then, here was another study that subjects with higher protein ratios of eating had so I mean by ratios, like if you're doing a ratio eating plan, a lot of people eat around 10%, and the RDA would be, around 10% of your protein between protein, carbohydrates, and fat, all that you eat all day, the RDA is like 10%, which is very low. If you eat 30% or more, and I wouldn't say a high protein, so I would say 30 to 50%, then you have a higher resting metabolic rate, that means if you did absolutely nothing all day and you laid down in bed and did nothing, you would actually burn more calories than somebody who ate at 10% protein. That's nice, right? Higher metabolic rate, higher levels of fat oxidation, so that means breaking down of fat, and higher levels of satiety. So that means you burn more fat and you feel more satisfied about your eating. So I just ate a huge ribeye just now for dinner. It was about 16 ounces. I ate the entire thing, minus the bone. And I feel so satisfied. Like I am good. And that is the only thing I had today. I had a shake, earlier. But other than coffee, that's it. That's all I had today. It's an extremely satisfying way of eating. All right, so how much protein should you be eating? That's the biggest question, right? So the recommended, the RDA, I don't even want to say what it is because it's so low. Like I can't even, I know that's what I used to eat at. And of course, that's why I had higher body fat levels and trouble putting on muscle mass because I wasn't actually consuming the building blocks that I needed for that purpose. So, excuse my swelling on my eye. I actually have I'm getting an eye infection, so I've been struggling with this for like a year. So it's acting up right now. So I can see in the mirror that's it's all swollen. Nobody punched me, I promise. So I recommend what the International Society of Sports Nutrition recommends, which is 0.9, and I usually just go ahead and round up, because it's just easier to do the math, So 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That is what your target should be every single day. So I weigh about 125, right? So I need to be targeting about 125. Now, me personally, I actually try to push it to 150. So I'm trying to get more 1.2, about 1.2. So that's for bodybuilding. I try to go over and extreme athletes. So if you work out like crazy like me and just love doing it, or you're an endurance athlete, then you probably will need to go over. You do 1.2, 1.3. I wouldn't go beyond that unless you are having a specialized nutrition person work with you who is in the bodybuilding realm. Because here's the danger: if you go too far over, if you do too high protein, you actually can cause some severe damage to your kidneys. So your body actually just cannot process it fast enough, and you have some breaking down of some systems. So definitely, if you can just follow the it's just easy to remember. How much do I weigh right now? That's how many grams of protein I should be shooting for every day. Now, I encourage you, if you don't track your food, do it for a week and just see, because I guarantee you, and I'm telling you, I've coached probably hundreds of people now in nutrition, and I can guarantee you every single person thought they were eating more protein than they actually were, right? We just assume we are, especially us meat eaters. We just assume we're getting a lot of protein because we eat meat. But the problem is you're most likely wrong. So, and that is the hardest thing with every single client of mine, is to get close to those macro goals for the protein. It is the hardest thing because of the satiety issue, because of how full it makes you feel. So this is the conundrum, because you trained yourself to eat so carbohydrate heavy and you thought you were getting enough protein, but you actually weren't. So now once you start pushing it up and kind of really pushing the protein, you're like, holy shit, I couldn't eat another bite. I'm just so full. I can't even get close to this goal. So sometimes we have to kind of baby step it up to get you used to it and finally get there, right? So I probably went, over my goal today, right where I wanted to be. I try to hit 150, and that's usually if I eat a huge steak, so I can hit that if I do that. Quality. Let's talk about quality, guys. This isn't just about shoveling your mouth full of chicken nuggets, right? Please don't do that. Oh God. Quality of food is very important when it comes to protein. Super, super important. And if you are not aware, what's called conventionally raised, so these are the non-organic, non-grass-fed, just food, meats that you get in the grocery store, vacuum packed. They're conventional animals. They have been basically fed garbage, most of them. They do literally feed them garbage, including plastics. And they're also given hormones, they're given antibiotics, and they're given, all sorts of just chemicals are in, because they're just consuming just anything that's given to them, because cows will eat anything, literally. So what do you think is happening to all these toxins and hormones and injections and things that are being put into their food? Well, they're being stored in their fat. And guess what? When you eat animal, even if you're eating a very lean cut of meat, you're still getting some fat tissue in that, because fat does develop in between the muscle tissues. And especially for conventionally raised animals, they fatten them up as much as they possibly can. They want them the bigger, the better, right? Because that's more money that they get in their pockets. The bigger the animal, the more money they get, right? So they fatten them up. So they feed them high carbohydrate foods like candy, literally candy, wrappers and all. Yeah. So what do you think is happening? You know, this stuff is getting into the meat. So when we consume it, now what? You know, so we don't know. We don't know what's happening, but it certainly can't be good, right? So let's not assume it is. Let's just assume that we need to really be very, very specific about when we eat meat and what kind of meat we eat, right? So even if you're just really hungry and you feel like you don't have time to make food or whatever, I would rather you know, stop somewhere a little higher quality maybe and get, you know, a quick bite versus like a McDonald's where the meat like literally is barely meat, right? Even if you throw away the bun and you're just eating the meat, it's the quality and like what's actually in it. You know, it's the cheapest meat you could possibly eat. So, and even like there's fillers in there, so it's literally not even, some of it's not meat. So yeah, just really focus on quality. If you can, do grass-fed, you know, organic, free range. If you're doing like chickens, you know, pasture raised, look for those kinds of verbiage on the requirements. If you live somewhere, you know, connect with a local butcher. Go to farmers markets. Get locally, you know, slaughtered meats and animals. Ask about these processes. Ask about, you know, the conditions that the animals are in, right? So if they can't answer these questions, then you probably shouldn't be eating them, right? So even if you're getting food at farmers markets, that doesn't mean it's good quality. It's important to ask, are these, you know, these cattle grass fed? You know, and if they can't answer the question or they're like, no, then you probably should move on. All right, so I'll get off my soapbox about grass-fed. So there's a ton of research in here about the beef from animals fed an abnormal diet, so the conventional cows, they have 5 times less omega-3 fatty acids in them. So the quality of the meat, literally down to the molecular level of the protein, is deficient, right? So the amount of protein that you're even getting in, you know, if you compare like a 6-ounce fillet from a conventional cow to a 6-ounce fillet from a pasture-raised grass-fed cow, you will actually get more protein even if it's same weight. Because of down to the molecular level of the protein, it's actually more protein. So this is the stuff that, you know, these people are out there doing this research. This is important stuff to know, guys. You know, it's not just, you know, sciencey, nerdy stuff, even though I love that. This is important for you to know, right? Why would you spend your money? You know, you're basically wasting your money. Even though the conventional cows are cheaper, you're actually getting at the molecular level less protein, even though it might say the same amount of ounces as the grass-fed one. So, you know, maybe just spending your money, you know, more cautiously and getting better quality meats would be the best thing to do. And this is where he introduced my favorite quote, and I say it all the time now. So he says, Shawn Stevenson, the author of this book, says, "You are what you eat, but really, you are what you ate." Keep that in mind. Even with plants, you are what you ate. So that means your plants consume, right? Your plants get nutrients. That's how they grow. What's being put on the plants? What's being fed the plants, right? This is all going into the cellular structure of these vegetables, of these meats. And you're going to consume them. So what is it going to do to you? We should be asking these questions, and we should be focusing on getting the best quality that we can. And even if those of you who are on, you know, on a budget and, you know, really have to be cautious about, you know, what your grocery bill and, you know, you have to meet a certain threshold there. The big box stores, like, I'm not a huge fan of the big box stores like, Costco and BJ's, and, there's some others out there, but they actually have been doing a much better job at introducing organic options, grass-fed options. I've seen them because I go to Costco maybe once a quarter to stock up on, like, cases of Pellegrino and, paper towels and toilet paper and, stuff like that. So definitely, if you have one in your area, that is an option for you. And even if you can't get to one that often, maybe go once a quarter like I do, and then stock up. And then, if you have a deep freezer, put the stuff in the deep freezer, and then you can thaw them out, and, you save a lot of money because you're buying in bulk and at one of those big box stores. So that's just my suggestion on that. Same thing when it comes to produce, for some, you can kind of put some away, or even, cook and then freeze them. So, or can them if you're a canner. So those are some ways you can save a lot of money on getting better quality produce and meats. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go. So look, I almost spent like my entire time on protein. There's so much in this chapter. We might have to do a part 2. Okay, so here are some sources of protein. You should already kind of know this stuff, but eggs are good. Okay, and he talks about why they're good. So there's 2 pages just on eggs in here. They're very high protein, so 34% protein by weight. And yes, they are very good for you, and you don't have to worry about cholesterol because cholesterol is good for you, and we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, dairy, if you can tolerate it. Not everybody can, and actually a very small percentage can. So if you are generally in a place right now where you're pretty unhealthy, I would not do dairy at all. Okay, it just is a very there's a very small percentage of people who can actually tolerate it. Health-wise and genetically. Yes, genetics comes to play with dairy tolerance. I have been able to work clients into being able to tolerate dairy, but that's because of great improvements of health over a long time. Okay, so if you are currently not very healthy, do not do dairy. It's just not a great option. It's probably causing problems more than you would get, the protein out of it. So, but if you can tolerate it, like I can, you can use this as a great source of protein because it's very high protein and has fantastic vitamins and minerals in it. Beans, peas, and lentils. I'm not a huge fan of this category, and I don't really encourage people to eat these, again, because of the lectin issue. And this is actually a common inflammatory trigger, especially for people who have metabolic syndrome and autoimmune issues. So again, this is not a great source of protein if you are currently not a very healthy person or if you have digestive issues. So I'll put that caveat in there. And it's not very high protein anyway, right? So it's still a carbohydrate heavy source of protein. And especially for, they're only 30% protein. Especially for beans. Beans are not a complete protein. It doesn't have all the essential fatty acids. So you actually have to combine it with a carbohydrate to get the other, I think it's missing 2 essential fatty acids. So you have to add more carbs to already a pretty carb heavy protein source. So if you are, I do have had some vegan clients in the past, not many, but this would be the only case. And the issue is we talked about last week. So if you missed that, it's so important the way you prepare these foods. If you don't prepare them right, you are literally poisoning yourself with the lectins. So rice and beans are huge in how you prepare them. If you're going to cook them, they need to be prepared in a pressure cooker or a long slow cooker. They need to be rinsed thoroughly, and they also need to be placed in the refrigerator at least overnight and then rinsed again. okay, to get all the lectins. The lectin is the phytotoxin that is released by these the lentils and also the rice. So that's my caveat on that one. Nuts and seeds. So again, nuts and seeds are usually higher in fat, but they are a decent source of protein. Again, if you have autoimmune, always on these, if you have autoimmune or metabolic syndrome, so I would not do nuts either. I would definitely say you could probably gradually, eventually add those, but it's certainly not something you need to be consuming every day. I personally even had to cut back on nuts because I found I was consuming them every day, like, you know, as a snack. And also I would put nut butters in my shakes on a daily basis. I actually ended up developing a nut allergy because of the overexposure to these nuts. Again, they do have phytotoxins in them. And the issue with some of these are the fungal issues. So it does have to do with the quality as well. If you're doing nut butters, do fresh ground nut butters, not like the canned ones. And they also, you know, add a lot of additives, preservatives, and sugars, and hydrogenated oils to those things. So if you're going to do nut butters, do the fresh ground ones from, you know, like Whole Foods or like Fresh Market. Some of my favorites, spirulina, chlorella, and apha. So I take spirulina and chlorella every single day. I'll drop the link to the Energy Bits website. You can get, I think, 20% off your first order with the coupon code FIRETEAM. So I'll drop that there. It is actually the highest protein source on the planet, even above and beyond animals. Isn't that crazy? A plant. So spirulina is upward of 71% protein by weight. Isn't that interesting? And they actually, if you take spirulina and chlorella, it actually eliminates your need of consuming vegetables because you can get actually all your micronutrients that you get from vegetables from spirulina and chlorella. A carnivore's dream. All right. So unfortunately, because they're so small and light, and they're not very dense, you have to eat a shitload of them to get a lot of protein. So that's the issue. So I only take maybe about 30 a day. I know some people take up to like 100 a day. So that's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know about doing all that. So I take them in like handfuls, like 3 times a day when I take my other supplements. So, but I am definitely a huge fan. There's so many antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals in them. They're the most just amazingly packed food with as far as just nutrients. So you definitely need to be, you know, adding these to your life. Okay, grains. Again, grains, another higher carbohydrate food. There are certain grains that actually do have a slightly considerable amount of protein in them. Again, not a great protein source, but if you are a vegan, you know, this would be something that you could add as an option. Amaranth is definitely the one that I recommend. So that really is the only one that I'll kind of bend on when it comes to grains. Amaranth, because it's naturally gluten-free. So, and I'm completely anti-gluten. So amaranth, I would say, would be your best bet. So it's also the highest protein grain. So that's a win-win. Again, the way you prepare these foods is extremely important as well. It's only 15% protein. So, you know, we are kind of going way down the list as far as, you know, protein source, quote unquote. That's actually not very high protein at all. And I love seeing those like protein bars out there on the market, and you look at them, the protein drinks, you know, and I turn them over and it's like 9 grams of protein. Ooh. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's like so low. It's not even funny. Those are the people just meeting RDA. All right, protein powders. Woohoo! I'm a big fan because it's really the only way on some days I can meet my protein threshold, and it is for my clients. Again, quality of these, oh my God, there's so many bad protein powders out there. It's just gross. Anything basically at a big box store is off. Do not touch. Do not consume. Do not collect. Don't even go there. They're crap and more crap piled on crap. Okay. I have provided you guys with so many different resources for protein. If you go to the Fireteam Whiskey store, we have the link to Equip, which is a fantastic source of protein. They're very high quality, and it's beef protein. Yes, powdered animal. It doesn't taste like powdered animal, I promise you. I take it every day. I actually take a combination, this is interesting, of the powdered beef Equip with the egg protein. So I have just a plain powdered egg and my Equip beef protein. So I combine the two because I love the health benefits of eggs as well, and the beef protein. And he talks about it in the book. So I was so glad that he included this source. The quality, definitely. So do not get the crap from grocery stores or big box stores. I will drop links to my favorites of the different categories here. Whey protein, if you could tolerate dairy, and even some people who don't tolerate dairy can actually tolerate whey because it has the milk sugars removed from it. There's tons of research out there about the health benefits of whey protein, and it's just crazy how much of a difference it makes in people's lives. So, Journal of Nutrition found that overweight test subjects who were instructed to consume whey protein daily for 23 weeks lost more fat mass, had greater loss in waist circumference, and had a greater reduction of circulating ghrelin levels. So, ghrelin is the hunger hormone, reduction of the hormone that makes you think you're hungry, right? Compared to test subjects taking a daily soy protein or isolate carbohydrate drink. Isn't that interesting? So whey is the specific thing that makes a difference. Whey protein and beef protein isolate groups show substantial improvements in body composition, increase in lean body mass, and reduction in fat mass compared to carb-based protein drinks, right? So like pea protein drinks. And what you're also getting with the whey and the beef protein is you're getting those branched chain amino acids. So you're getting the complete proteins, all of them, instead of the limited ones on like the pea protein sources. So, this one's also the, because you're getting the BCAAs, it has been found that it directly increases the creation of new mitochondria in muscle tissue. And if you don't know what mitochondria do, they actually burn fat for energy. That's their primary job. All right, so you get more of those, that means you're burning more fat for energy. So yeah, definitely the egg protein, whey protein, beef protein, top 3 definite ones that you should be doing. And then the carbohydrate sourced ones, I definitely don't encourage taking unless you are a vegan. Then I could say, okay, well, we might make some exceptions, but just am not a fan of those because there's just no data on the health improvements on that. All right. So, I get asked this question all the time. When should you eat carbs? Okay. So carbohydrates is our next macro. We know what carbs are. We know where they come from. They come from sugars. They come from grains. They come from some, vegetable because of the fibers that are in the vegetables and fruits, right? When should you eat carbs? So if you are eating carbs, and hopefully you were limiting them because that's very, very important. When should you eat them? So a study showed that participants at a lower carb breakfast group showed a 61%, 61% greater reduction in BMI, 65% greater weight loss, 34% greater reduction in waist circumference, and 16% greater reduction in body fat. That is insane. Insane. The only difference between the two, one group had a high carb breakfast, one group had a low carb breakfast. Mic drop. So if you are eating quinoa or oatmeal or fruit or having sugary crap in the morning, like donuts and bagels and stuff that you know you shouldn't be eating, waffles and pancakes and, basically sugar, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Don't do that to yourself. Try not to eat breakfast at all, actually, because the intermittent fasting will increase your fat reduction as well. But if you do have to, I had breakfasty at I'd say noon today. I made 2 eggs with some venison sausage. So super low carb breakfast, even though it was kind of lunchish. And that's what you should be doing. If you're going to have carbohydrates, have them with your dinner, combined with protein, definitely, protein and fat. So don't just do a big bowl of pasta. No, that's not what I'm saying. Captain Lincoln didn't say that. I'm saying if you're going to have carbohydrates, have them in combination with your higher protein meal in the evening, right? So if you're going to do maybe some beans or a sweet potato or something like that, or, vegetables, which are higher in carbs, then do them combined with your protein in the evening. So how many carbs should we eat? That's the other question. Well, the answer is it depends. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on your current metabolic health and insulin resistance. It depends on, your current, body mass and your body composition and what your goals are. It depends on, your level of activity and, how many hours you sleep. It depends on a lot of things. Everybody has what Sean calls a carbohydrate tipping point. So if you can, stay around that threshold, it gives you enough energy. It's good for you. It's healthy. It doesn't cause you to gain weight. But if you go over that tipping point, then that's when you start seeing the weight gain and the body fat starting going up. That takes time to figure out, and it fluctuates and it changes as your body composition changes, as your health changes, as you get more healthy and fit. Hopefully that's the progress you're going and not the other way. This is going to change for you. So as you get healthier, you're going to be you're going to be metabolically more flexible, is what we call it. So then you can actually have a higher carb, days that you eat and not put on weight like you would maybe possibly before. Like before, when my metabolism was in the trash, I actually did experiment where I ate like a higher carb day and literally I put on like 5 pounds overnight. Like it was that easy. If I just smelled bread, I would put on weight. So I had for a long time had to super restrict my carbs. Now, because I'm healed metabolically, that's no longer an issue. If I have a piece of bread or have an ice cream or a treat, I don't put on 5 pounds overnight like I used to. I literally did. And my husband didn't believe me, and I showed him my weight, and I said, I'm going to eat this and I'm going to show you my weight tomorrow. 5 pounds. Boom. He was like, oh my God, that's impossible. You must have done something to the scale. No, that's because I was very metabolically sick. So we all have different thresholds, right? So if you're more metabolically unhealthy, you're probably going to have to start lower. And then you can start moving that up, right? Okay. And I just wanted to make sure that this is very clear. With carbs, you have no biological need to consume carbs. I say again, 0. The lower limit, the Institute of Medicine, Food and Nutrition Board states, these are doctors, say, now, not that I trust doctors, but even the medical society out there says, even though they would never prescribe this, the lower limit of dietary carbohydrate compatible with life apparently is 0, provided that adequate amounts of protein and fat are consumed. If you are getting protein and fat in adequate amounts, so you're not starving yourself, you do not need to consume a carb, not one. You know why? Because your body, your liver specifically, can make carbs out of those building blocks that you consume through the proteins and the fat. Your body is a sugar factory. Did you know you have your own sugar factory? It's your liver. You carry it around with you everywhere you go. So it can make its own sugar. You don't actually need to consume it. So he talks about fructose, so this is basically sugar. And the issue behind fructose and sugar, unfortunately, is there's no one size fit all. I can't say keep your sugars down below this, or you can only consume this amount of sugar, or you should not eat this sugar. Well, actually I can say this. You should not eat processed sugar. I'll just stick with that. But when it comes to like fruit and things, or just simple sugars and like dairy and carbohydrates and grains, that varies, and it varies dramatically from person to person. So they've done studies. My good friend Rob Wolf, he did some studies on glycemic responses, and they found that a person's glycemic response, so blood sugar response to consuming fructose, is completely unpredictable. So there's a lot of factors like genetics, body composition, and microbiome. Didn't we just talk about microbiome? That was the very first thing we talked about when we opened up this book. So there's no one size fits all. I can't say to you that a banana is bad to eat because it's going to cause your blood sugar to spike and then insulin to be released, and then your body's going to store fat. Because in some people, yes, that does happen. In others, it actually has the opposite effect. It actually makes their blood sugars go down, and they have almost no insulin response. This is why I'm a big fan of checking your blood sugar and doing the ketone tests. So you know what your own personal body's response are to specific foods. Even better is to get a continuous glucose monitor where it's implanted. I'm actually going to get one once we get somewhere where I can actually physically get it sent to me, and I'm going to do an experiment with it to see what my current levels are and reactions are to certain foods. So I know what my responses are to specific things. Pretty neat, right? So we can't just say, in general, stay away from these fruits, these vegetables or these grains that cause blood sugar spikes. There is a glycemic index out there that tells you guidelines of which have higher glycemic indexes, but that's the problem, is just because it happened to some of their test subjects when they put that chart together, that doesn't mean it's going to happen to others, and it doesn't predict insulin response. Everybody has a different insulin response too. So even if you maybe have a higher glycemic response, that doesn't mean your body has a high insulin response. If I had hair, I'd pull it out. I wish it were much more simple, but it's not. So this is why it's so important. Are your minds blown by now? I hope if you've watched these past few videos, this is our fourth on this book, how maybe you've come away understanding that it's not as simple as your doctors or the government says it is, like the calories in, calories out. That is total effing bullshit, right? You have just learned in these 4 chapters that is not the case. Everyone's body is different, and we need to understand these systems and as much as we can, and try to work with them instead of against them, and magically hoping and praying that the calories in, calories out thing is an actual thing, but it's actually not. So hopefully you're learning that so far in reading this book. Night carvers, I already talked about that. Fat burning and exercise. He has a little blurb in here about this, and he talks about exercise a lot more later. But I just wanted you guys to see, You do need to vary your workouts. You need to do all sorts of different types of cardiovascular workouts. You can't just do steady state cardio. You can't just do high intensity interval. You can't just do strength training. You can't just do yoga. You can't just do running. You have to do all of it. You have to do all sorts of different kinds of workouts because it works your body in different ways. It challenges your systems in different ways. It builds different pathways. It builds different muscle groups and muscle tone, different flexibility, reactivity, but most importantly is that you get into different cardiovascular states, and there's 3 different ones that do different things and have different health benefits. They're all beneficial, but you need to do all of them. So like today with my bike, I didn't push it hard. I didn't do sprints. I just kind of did a steady pace, right? I never got to even close to my max heart rate, which is absolutely fine. Because guess what? 2 days ago, I did high intensity intervals and I spent, like 15 minutes near my max heart rate. So I got the benefits of high intensity intervals. But today, I got the benefits of more fat burn, right? So they all have different results. So you need to be doing all of them, right? So he says in here, high intensity intervals burn significantly more calories after the workout is over for the next several hours. That's called EPOC, and that's why I based most of Fireteam Whiskey's programs on high intensity interval training, because most people won't do that on their own. And that's why we have such heavy high intensity intervals in our programs, because most people will go for a walk or a bike ride or a run and do that steady state cardio. So we don't need to show you how to do that. That's the most typical form of cardio that people do. So you usually have to be pushed pretty hard to do the high intensity intervals because it freaking hurts. And then he talks about fat. So the rest of the chapter pretty much is about fat. Tons of information in here. I'm running out of time. So he covers all the different kinds of fats, which is a very long, substantial list. I will talk about it, just a few of them, not all of them. But I just wanted to make sure that you got this point right here. I highlighted it, and it is all caps on page 143. Dietary fat is not a major determination or determinant of body fat. Dietary fat does not determine body fat. Fat does not make you fat. Eating fat does not make you fat. Repeat after me. Do not be afraid of fat. Eat it. It is essential. And there are so many people out there, unfortunately, who are suffering now because they've been following the low-fat myth for so long. It has done extensive damage on their neurology, autoimmune, your hormonal systems. Horrific effects of, and you can, here I've heard so many interviews with former vegans who, followed these things for decades thinking they were doing the right thing, and they actually just completely trashed their bodies and are paying the health price chronically for it. So eat fat is the bottom line. What kinds of fat? There's so many different kinds of fat. I didn't know there were so many different kinds of fat until I read this book. We have saturated fats. Again, this is the one that has been demonized, right? Oh, saturated fat is going to make you have a heart attack. And actually, no, that's not the case. So the data from 135,000 participants from 18 different countries showed that not only did saturated fat not increase the risk of cardiovascular disease, people eating more saturated fat actually lived longer. Yeah. So eat that saturated fat. So you don't have to be afraid of egg yolks, right? Oh, that's cholesterol, but that is a part of this process. So there are long chain, medium chain, and short chain fats. Long chain is mainly, meat sources, animal sources, meat and dairy, as well as coconut fat, palm oil, and cocoa butter. MCT, medium chain, so I'm a big fan. Spec Ops shakes are an MCT fat shake with whey protein. Didn't I just talk about the health benefits of whey protein? That crazy study that found like a 65% reduction in body fat and regular use of MCTs, or regular use of whey protein, excuse me. There's also tons of studies out there, and we have them on Fireteam Whiskey website. If you go to Spec Ops Shake tab on our website, we have research cited all throughout there, all the health benefits related to MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, which is what I'm talking about, these kinds of saturated fats. So these are from coconut, palm oil, and goat's milk. Somebody's knocking on the door. Who's knocking on the door? Ah, we have a visitor. It's Buddy. Buddy the cat. Okay. Buddy the cat says, Mom, you better get done. Got 8 minutes. Okay. So MCT is awesome. Short chain fats. Basically, this is from bacteria and butter. So all the things. Monounsaturated fats. These are from nuts mainly. Olive oil is another source of this. Olive oil's amazing. There's so many health benefits. He talks a lot about that in here. I think there's even a whole chapter later on about olive oil. Brazil nuts, cashews, pumpkin seeds, butter, pork, beef, duck, avocados, avocado oil. We cook with avocado oil mainly, and olive oil. And certain cheeses like cheddar and Colby. We have another visitor. We keep having visitors. They're all joining our book club. Look, Max joined the book club. Did Max join the book club? Oh, and please, he says, thank goodness he says this, please do not buy olive oil in plastic containers. Actually, don't buy anything in plastic containers. If it doesn't come in glass, do not buy it. And it also needs to be in a tinted container, because the exposure to light breaks down things and makes it very unhealthy for you. So it needs to be a tinted, usually they tint them green, a dark colored olive oil bottle, and it needs to be glass. All right, so don't buy oils in period or anything in a plastic bottle. Just it needs to be in glass. Where were we at? Oh, omega-7s. So these are the wild caught fish, salmon, sea bass, sardines, avocados as well, macadamia. Have you heard avocados and nuts over and over again, and also olives. Omega-9s, oleic acid, olive oil again. This is my life, guys. Okay, so PUFAs get a bad name because a lot of the vegetable oils are PUFAs. So these are polyunsaturated fats. I'm not completely against all polyunsaturated fats, but a majority of them are very bad for you because they are hydrogenated oils, seed oils, vegetable oils. Do not be consuming those for your PUFA, for your polyunsaturated fat. The best, so this is where you get your omega-3 and omega-6. You hear that a lot, right? Fish oil, you've heard those. So flax seeds, flaxseed oil, chia seeds, walnut, kale, hemp, hemp seeds, hemp oil, and some animal fats like grass-fed beef, egg yolks, fatty fish like mackerel, salmon, sardines, and anchovies. I like to hike with sardines. Yeah, so those are fantastic. Or to put on like a little gluten-free, like almond crackers or something like that. They're delicious. Great source of those omega-3 fats that you need. Okay. All right, so the last one I'm going to cover, and then, I mean, there's so much other stuff in here. There's a whole section about water that I'm not going to be able to get to. So definitely pick up this chapter and read it again, because it's just so meaty. Alcohol. So he does talk about alcohol, and he also talks about how water should be a macro. He talks about how alcohol and water should be a macro. So here's the issue with alcohol. So yes, there are some health benefits if you are a light drinker. So approximately 2 or less drinks per day for men and 1 drink per day for women. I would definitely say I would half that. But they are less likely, 20% less likely to die from so all-cause mortality is what they call it in research, from any kind of death. The problem is even a moderate and mild intake of alcohol can have an inhibitory effect on leptin. And leptin is the hormone that tells you that you're full, right? So we do not want to feel like we're hungry. And that happens to me every time I drink alcohol. Even if I've had a huge meal, if I've had alcohol with it, I feel unsatisfied. I feel like I'm still hungry. I feel snacky, and I definitely crave carbs, right? So most people make very poor choices when they're having alcohol, right? Not only behaviorally, but with their food. So if it is something that you cannot control yourself over, and you enjoy, you want to get the health benefits, you enjoy the kind of the relaxation when it comes to alcohol, but it does affect your behavior when it comes to eating and snacking, then I would say just you need to completely abstain. It is what it is. I hardly ever drink. I mean, it's maybe once every 2 weeks I'll have a drink. So, on special occasions, I might even have 1.5. But I just find that I sleep like shit. It dehydrates the hell out of me. It makes me crave sugar. It's just all in all not worth it to me. So I hardly ever do it anymore. So that's just my choice, and I definitely encourage clients, if you just feel like, it makes you a little bit miserable, because it makes you crave sugar and stuff. My blood sugar is always off the next day. Just abstain. And then there's a whole section about water that's really, really good. I do agree with him that it should be considered a macro, and it is extremely important that you focus on your water consumption on a daily basis and increasing those electrolytes. So I've done whole talks on these. Look back on the video section of this group and look back at my water. I did it maybe 2 months ago. It wasn't that long ago, so you should be able to find it pretty quickly. And it is on our Fireteam Whiskey YouTube channel. So, just search for the word water and it'll come up. So definitely get that information, because that is the last part of what was in this chapter. But I'm out of time. So thanks for joining me. I know it was a little bit longer than we normally go, but it was the longest chapter in the book. So that's why it was so long. So please, please, please have a wonderful, safe, healthy, and happy holiday this week. Those of you who are Fireteam Whiskey app members, I will see you on the app. I can't wait to see your videos and your pictures that you do for our holiday challenge. That's always a lot of fun. And get well soon, Jim. And we hope to see you on our next week's call where we cover Chapter 5.